Okay, we are rolling. Okay, so hi there. My name is Lisa Shapiro, and I am the founder and CEO of DCFempreneurs. We are a community that supports DC area female entrepreneurs. And as you may have learned, Alex Suchman is one of our FAB members. It stands for Fempreneur Advocate Business, FAB. And for our month of August, we are focusing on members of our community that have spent their entire lives learning a core set of knowledge and skills and have that knowledge to share with our community. And I think it's one of the things that we do really, really well in our community is we welcome a lot of the people in our community to host workshops and to co-host webinars and lives, especially when they're informative. So this entire month is chock full of events just like this, where someone has a key set of knowledge and skills that are particularly helpful to entrepreneurs. And so I want to thank Alex and welcome her. She's going to be leading the webinar pretty much all today. I will help facilitate with some of the questions at the end. And you know, if you have something that you want mentioned, you can drop it in the chat and we'll find a good spot to ask that question. Otherwise, I think I'll turn it over to Alex and then we'll do our introductions. So welcome,
Great.
Alex.
Thanks so much, Lisa. I'm really excited to be here. And thank you all for joining today. So I'm Alex Suchman. I am about 3 years into my business, AIS Collaborations, where I work primarily with small businesses, also with some small nonprofits on operations, processes, systems, all the words that many people run for the hills when they hear. They think like, oh, that sounds really corporate. That's really boring. I don't need that. I'm just a 1 or 3 or 5 person business. But really operations, all of that is how you do the work that you do. Most of us have an amazing idea, an amazing set of skills and ways that we want to help people. And we are really good at that body of knowledge and that set of services and skills. But running a business is a totally different animal. There are a million things that I know I never thought that I would need to understand, and situations that I had never found myself into. And it's really hard to know what's going on and what you need to do. And you can't become an expert in everything. And so I look at processes and systems as shortcuts for the parts of your work that you don't like to do or you don't want to think about and that aren't worth spending a lot of time on, so that you can spend more time and have more energy and haven't used up all your stress on these tedious things that are really outside of your area of passion. So I like to see organizing and structure as liberating and not confining, because you're just trying to restrict the things that you don't want to be spending your time on anyways. So I'm really passionate, in case you can't tell, I'm really passionate about this. Most of my clients are right brain people who are very driven by big picture, solving big problems and being creative. And really benefit from having a little bit of structure. So with that said, I want to just go around, since we're a nice and small group today, and learn a little bit about you. This really is for you. I have some slides and ideas that I want to present, but I also want to answer your questions. I want to make this as relevant and useful to you. So please, if you have questions, feel free to stop me, just unmute yourself or put them in the chat, and Lisa will moderate and bring it up. But this type of conversation is so much more useful when we can make it as specific and personal as possible. So please jump in. With that said, let's just go around. Let's do it like popcorn style, where I'll call on the first person, and then when they're done, they'll call someone else. And just quick introduction, your name, your business, and what's one takeaway you're hoping to leave with, or one particular challenge that you're looking for some insights on how to overcome. So we'll just go. Jennifer, you are right next to me in the Brady Bunch picture boxes. So why don't we go with you first?
you go. Thanks, Alex. Yeah, I'm Jennifer. My company is Sparent, and we're a virtual staffing agency staffed entirely by stay-at-home moms with skills to spare. So like Alex, I am super passionate about my business. We are all about delegating. So we're a good place to come to after you get your systems and processes in order. So I completely love everything that Alex said about her business, because it's so important to get those day-to-day operations off your plate so you can step into the role of CEO and visionary of your company. And in order to have a healthy company that scales, you really need to get away from those day-to-day operations. So that's what we do. In terms of a takeaway, I love being organized, and Alex, I know, knows her stuff. So I'm just hoping to take away, even if it's just one little nugget that I have not heard, so I can be more organized in both my business and, you know, some side projects that I have going on as well.
Great. Thanks. Do you want to pick
Oh,
next victim?
yeah, sure. I'll stick with my line and I'll go to Angie.
Sorry, it took a second for the unmute. So my name is Angie. I am in my 15th year in business as a realtor in Northern Virginia, and where I'm really good with multitasking and kind of gleaning information from the client as to like, what do you need? What do you want? How can we mesh this all together? I would be much more effective in my own time and give myself some of my time back if I was more effective with like the organization piece. That is a challenge. So please make me like.
Excellent. Do you want to pick the next person?
Phyllis. You're up, Phyllis. So just unmute and go for it.
Thank you.
Cute glasses.
Oh, thanks, Angie. I jumped on a little bit late. I'm sorry. So I didn't get the full introduction. My name's Phyllis Simon. I'm an intellectual property attorney with a solo practice. So I focus on helping small businesses understand copyrights, trademarks, and patents. In terms of organization, I'm also the mom of 3 school-age kids, one of whom is entering kindergarten. So with the virtual start, I'm just really struggling on how I'm going to organize facilitating online school for 3 kids and also getting anything done. So I think what I'm going to try to do is somehow try to organize myself so I can make small tasks for myself during the day that can be done in like 10-minute spurts or something. Like I'm not really sure. So takeaway is how to micro organize, I guess.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome and good to see you. Do you want to call on the next person?
Okay. How about Christina?
There we go. Hey everyone, good morning, or what is it, noon? Okay, well, good afternoon. So I'm Christina. I've been a member of DCFempreneurs since December, and I really love meeting all the ladies in this group. Wasn't an entrepreneur up until last year, so I'm learning a lot. My company is an online interior design studio, so I help people thrive in their homes by creating beautiful rooms. And what I'm hoping to take away is I've actually been working for 2 months now with a coach who happens to be a designer on my backends and my systems to help clients onboard faster and to make sure that the process is clearer and more consistent, because making over your home is awesome, but there's so many steps to it. So making sure that all that is really smooth. So my takeaway is I want to continue the process of making sure that I have a consistent process, because it's easy to get distracted with all the things that I need to do. So yes.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I will pick Sue.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Sue Rosenbaum, And Christina and I have our design practices in common. I am a full service in-home interior designer. And now, of course, with the Rona, we've all had to twist and turn and create, an online presence and a virtual service. And, it's tricky when you're used to having everything in person. I love to put the fun in functional interior design. I thrive at creating fun and different solutions for people that are really specific to the way that they live and that they entertain and that they are every single day in their homes. I uncover options and choices that they may not have had any idea existed. And I take all the stress and strain off the clients because I take care of all of that for them. And, they can go on and do whatever they do normally. They don't have to worry about any of the design things because that's why they're paying me. I've been in business for 15 years. And I am hoping today to learn a few little nuggets, like Jennifer said at the beginning. Systems and processes are definitely not my forte. Every single client is different. Every single project is different. Every single day is different. And I am learning, I get overwhelmed easily when it comes to technology and new things. So little nuggets is perfect for me. So I'm hoping to take away a couple of things, that I can implement easily enough. So thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Great. You want to pick the next?
I will pick Allison Wood.
Morning, ladies. And I'm going to echo, I did not get all glammed up like everybody else. I unfortunately dressed for the weather today. But I'm also out in Western Loudoun. I am the director of sales and marketing for 2 wineries, Sunset Hills Vineyard and 50 West Vineyards. And I am tuning in today because I've been helping the owners to restructure both of their businesses. And systems and processes has been one of those things that I found that there's been a lack of. And I like to live in that kind of world, but I have found that there's just so many that I need to put in place, that having a professional that knows what they're talking about and can just help me to help even just the different managers that I'm working with to help them to figure out their own systems that they're going to put in place.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to point the next?
Sure. I will pick Jennifer because her picture looks really cool.
Oh, Jennifer already went, so you got.
Oh man! All right, I'm gonna pick Alexis.
Alexis says she doesn't have access to video and audio.
Oh, okay.
So,
Erin.
Let's see who's left. Did Erin go?
I'm ready if you gals are.
Okay.
All right, so hello again. This is Erin. I am out in Western Loudoun, like Allison said. I am actually recently departed from Sunset Hills Winery and 50 West. I was their director of business development, but I am moving on to new fun challenges, and I am set to launch my own consulting business, specifically targeting tourism and hospitality in our wine industries, but overall small business consulting, small to medium businesses with a strategy based on brand engagement and scale and growth models. That being said, I am a systems gal. My business partner is a bigger systems person than I am. I tend to be more of the 30,000 feet and they need to dial me back in a lot. So that being said, I'm really looking forward to learning and potentially putting some new structures in place for myself that'll help me be more effective for my clients.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I think we have Chris left, our stylist friend, and then we have to wrap up. So
yeah.
Okay. Hi guys. I'll be super fast. My name is Chris, and I am the owner of CMG Style. I am a style coach, and I help women take the guesswork out of getting dressed by using mindset as the foundation for all of our wardrobe decisions.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to share my screen now. And again, please jump in if you have questions. I'm happy to answer them if you want to just jump in and unmute yourself, or put them in the chat box, and Lisa can interrupt me because I'm not very good at reading the chat and talking at the same time. So I have many skills. That is not one. All right. Can everybody see this now?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I think. All right. So this is.
Alex, can you go ahead and press present so it just.
Yeah, you know what? I need to switch. I have it on. I have two screens, and it didn't share the screen that I wanted. So let me share the other screen. Okay. All right. Better?
Perfect.
Sometimes this two monitor thing is wonderful, and sometimes it is a bit tricky. All right, so this is strategic organizing to empower success. And as all of you hit on, there is so much to keep track of and to think about when you have your own business. And we all have our own ways of thinking about it. Some of us really like being in the weeds and thinking about the day-to-day. Some of us really like the big picture visioning piece of it. And it's hard to connect the two. And without connecting it, you either can feel very buried under mess and chaos and reacting, or else you can feel like you're not sure where you are in actually accomplishing your goals. And you don't know if you're actually doing the right things to get there. So that's why I think of this as strategic organizing. It's not just for the sake of like having a neat desk or having being able to find everything that you need. Those things are really important, but it's bigger than that. It's really about how to make your business stronger in the long run. So there's three big questions I want to talk about today. The first is why being organized is so important for small businesses. The second is why is it so hard to get organized and to stay organized? And the third is why is organizing so important for resilience and empowering success? So the first one is why is it so important? And you hit on a lot of this in your introductions. It's staying on top of things. It's making sure you're spending your time the right way and not wasting time. It's balancing. Right now, I know everybody is balancing kids and family members and being home all the time, and a whole new set of personal life circumstances in addition to professional life. So you really want to have your business as streamlined as possible. But when we think about being organized, it means really, it can mean a lot of different things. You're not just talking about the saving time and preventing stress. You're thinking about moving forward, being prepared and resilient for changes. I think we've all learned the really hard way that maybe we weren't as prepared for a sudden shift as possible. We're dealing with challenges that we never would have imagined possible. I know for me, when the pandemic started and it became clear that I was going to be working with clients remotely for a long time, I had to find a completely different platform to do my work, because I was used to doing in person and doing a lot of mapping and brainstorming activities, where not only are you in the same space, but you're touching markers and Post-it notes and all the things that now we would probably think would be a horror movie to live through. So it's how do you stay flexible to respond to change? It's also just going about your business with clarity and confidence, and feeling like you're in control of whatever is going to happen. And being organized, it means something different to everybody. For some people, it is the physical cues, your physical environment. It's having your desk look a certain way and having your shelves a certain way and having your share drive and files set up so that you can find everything, and just knowing where things are. For some people, being organized is keeping track of your schedule and your time, and having a clear plan each day or each week for this is what I'm going to do, this is what I need to get done, this is how everything is going to fit in. And it's that time piece that's most important. For people who work with a lot of different clients and customers, being organized means getting into the right headspace when you're working with someone. So you're not talking to one, like Chris, for you, where you're not giving one person, style advice, that you're actually thinking about another person. It's really important that we can be present to the actual situation that we're in when we're in it, and to be able to move back and forth. So we all experience being disorganized in very different ways and have different comfort levels. And this gets right into why it's so hard. And there's two reasons why being organized is so hard. One is because it means something different to everybody. Sue, you mentioned this in the introduction, that with designs, it's figuring out what's functional and what's pleasing to each individual person. And it is the exact same thing with systems and processes in your business. What works, I was talking to Lisa on the phone this morning, and we were talking about, we might have exactly the same challenge in our business. Let's say we need a new way to keep track of all of our leads that are coming in and follow up with people. But whereas for her, a specific tool might make perfect sense. For me, it'd be the nightmare solution, and I would spend a lot of money and time in setting it up, and I would never use it again. And this is why it's so hard, is because you have to get to know yourself. You sort of have to look inside of your brain, which it takes time. Sometimes we don't always like what we see. I know, how many of you have ever thought of yourself as like, oh, I'm always on time. And then a friend says to you, why are you always running late? And you're like, no, that's not how I see myself. We all have things where we don't necessarily see ourselves the way other people do. And it's not fun to learn those things. Or it's not fun to recognize, oh, maybe I've neglected one area of my business for so long because I just hate dealing with that. But then you can't really complain if you're experiencing chaos in that part of your business because you're not thinking about it. So it's really personal for everyone. And the other reason that it's so hard is because it's invisible. And that's why it's so easy to not think about processes and systems, is because it's like the back end of how you do things. And that also takes a lot of not just looking inside your brain, but looking at what have you done before and what's worked and what hasn't worked. And you have to get really, really specific, even thinking about, when I'm having a call with a lead, is it better when I take notes by hand, or is it better when I'm typing the notes, or is it better to record it and go back and listen? They're all wonderful solutions. Probably only one of them is wonderful for you. And so it's so easy to just hear, oh yeah, people have the same problem and this person started using this tool and it worked for them. And then you feel like a failure when it doesn't work for you. So you have to do that hard work of figuring out, what do you need? And it's really common to not take advantage of the most important piece of information. And that's, you already have a lot of experience doing this. You can think back to say, what was a conversation I had with a lead that everything went perfectly? Like, we just connected with each other. What did I do? What were the steps I took? What were the questions I asked? Maybe there were some personality traits that just were really in sync. And can you identify those so you recognize, if you pick up on that chemistry with somebody else, they might be a great match. If you don't, maybe you can niche your audience a little bit better and not focus on those people. So it's ruling things out that don't work for you, and feeling totally fine with that. It's empowering. There's nothing wrong with you. It's empowering to be like, you know what? This is not me. The reason I discovered that I was really good with operations and processes is that I worked at several places where nobody thought about these things. And I was constantly frustrated, and was like, why is everybody so inconsiderate of people's time and not worried about, meeting deadlines as much? And And so I realized, okay, this is the work environment that I don't want to be in. Everything that the way people are setting up systems and the way people are approached how they're working is a bad fit for me. So when I do start my own business, it's going to be this. So I would say it's almost more valuable to rule those things out. Okay, so I want to give an example here. I worked with in how different people experience disorganization. One of my clients, a big project I did for them was setting up their like shared drive. We ended up using Microsoft Teams and creating shared workspaces. This was a church and it was a small staff, but everybody worked together on a lot of things, but had different roles. So on their own computers, before they had any type of shared drive system, people would save the documents that they needed, but they would save them with their own name and in their own place. And so when it came to having to share things and send things back and forth, you ended up with 10 versions of the weekly bulletin, and nobody knew what was the most recent one. Because some people, there was the office manager who was in charge of assembling the whole thing. And then there was the person that just put the events in. So for her, it was just the events were the big thing. So it was labeled, events for the coming week. And for the music director, having to find the hymns. So everybody was focused on a very different piece of ultimately what would be the same project. So it was really hard to put it all together when they all just had these different sections. So in creating a shared drive, it said, okay, what's the frustration that you have with putting this bulletin together? Let's come up with common language. Is each of your part a section of the bulletin? So maybe we can put a template together in the shared drive for the bulletin that's split into each section, and then you can just plug your piece in, and you can all access the same document, and you're not sending things back and forth. But in order to do that, we had to come up with that common language and common structure that was going to make sense for everybody. Because if one person didn't buy into the system and didn't like the organizational structure of the folders and file names, they weren't going to use it. And so that was really hard because when you're working with a bunch of people, not only do you have to figure out what works for you, but you have to make sure that it's going to make sense to everybody else who uses it. And I think that's a really common oversight, that where someone is like, oh, this new tool, this new CRM works really well for me. I'm going to use it. It's going to fix all of our problems. And then you find out, oh, this makes no sense to the rest of my team. Any questions so far? I know I'm talking really fast. I want to make sure we get time for questions.
No questions so far in the chat. I'd say let's roll on ahead.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so then how does organizing boost resilience and empower success? And I want to give a couple examples here. What it comes down to, though, is systems. Is when you're in the process of getting organized, is the process of like dumping all of this useful information, your preferences, your work style, your great past experiences, your bad experience, all the articles you read, the blogs you read, the communities you're a part of. It's taking all of that information that's circling around in your brain and getting it out of your brain. We love to think like, oh, we can just think our way out of every problem, and we don't really need we don't need help, and the right solutions will just come to us. But it's really hard to keep track of that much information and to use it appropriately. So these are the 3 steps for organizing and creating a system. The first one is, how are you experiencing the problem? Really thinking through what is the disorganization like for you? What are the problems that it's causing? What are you not able to do that you wish you could do? What are the mistakes or oversights that keep coming up? What are the emotions attached to it? And really digging deep into specific examples of okay, I'll give an example. When I first started my business, and I was posting weekly blog posts at the time. I realized now that was way too ambitious and have cut down a little bit. But every single time I was like, I can't remember you know, where I go on Squarespace and, you know, how I do the attributions of the pictures. And there's just all of this messy information. And so I was like, okay, what do I want? I want to just be able to know every time, these are the steps that I take. This is the resolution a picture has to be in. This is how much text to do. I need to already have done the keyword research. Because those are all the things that would make the experience seamless. So I understood that not having all of those and feeling like I signed on to do something that should take 10 minutes and it was taking half an hour, that was really frustrating. So that was how I was experiencing the problem. Then the outcome I was trying to achieve was a really simple solution way to just post all of my blogs and get all that information there. And I wanted it to take 5 minutes. If I signed on and set 5 minutes aside, I didn't want to be there 15 minutes later figuring everything out. So once you've identified those two pieces, then you can figure out, how do you get from here to there? What do you need? Is it a matter of, in that case, just writing out a very short checklist of the steps for posting my blog? For one of my clients, she's a title agent, and you know, she meets dozens and dozens of people every week. And it was, you know, some of the people were potential referral partners. Some of them were, you know, vendors that could help her with like open houses and events. Some of them were, you know, potential homeowners that were going to need her services at some point. And she felt like she was just buried in this pile of business cards and emails and people that she connected to on Facebook groups, and didn't know what to do with it and really wanted to have a process. But before she could even do that, she had to organize, what are the types of contacts? Who are the people that could be potential referral sources, so that she could make sure that they're on her newsletter list, or make sure that she schedules coffee with them. This is back in the days when you were allowed to meet people for coffee. You know, so that on a quarterly basis, she could have coffee or lunch with certain people. Who are the people that were vendors and maybe caterers that if she was doing a workshop or an event, she might want to contact. So maybe they don't need to be on her newsletter, and she doesn't need to you know, have coffee with them on a quarterly basis. But she wants to remember that she met them and liked them, so that if she wants to use their services, she has that information. So it was coming up with the categories that she needed, and that was the organizing challenge. And then thinking about, for each one of those categories, how does that fit within the bigger picture of her business? What's the outcome that she's trying to get to? And then how do you put a process in place? So we made a whole contacts database and would flag for each person she entered, you know, this is a lender, this is a real estate agent, this is a vendor, and had workflows for each one. But the process of getting to that, it sounds relatively simple now, but it was several days of whiteboards and Post-its and grouping and regrouping and thinking through, you know, looking through a stack of business cards and, you know, who is this person and how will they be useful to you, or how are you useful to them? That's a lot of information to get out. And, you know, she said several times that just getting it out of her head and seeing it objectively and being able to do something with it was so empowering. And then another example that I want to share is, I mentioned with some people feeling the experience of being disorganized is not knowing how to spend their time, and not knowing if they're doing the right thing, or feeling like deadlines that they've known about for months suddenly sneak up on them. Or it's like, oh no, I have to do my invoicing again. I totally forgot. But there are things that are predictable and cyclical in having a business. There's things that you should do every day or every week or every month. So what I did with her was brainstorming all of the tasks, big and small, that she has to do to run her business, to work with her clients, for her own, you know, networking and business development purposes, things that she just liked to do that were, she was an artist, and so that would inspire creativity, making sure that she built in enough time to take care of herself and, you know, enrich herself and her talents. So we probably had, you know, 100, 150 Post-its out there. Then I was like, okay, let's look at these based on what are the things that have to be done on a weekly basis? What are the things that have to be done on a monthly basis and quarterly and annually and so on? And we plugged those in. I took a bunch of flip chart paper and we made, one was for this is what a typical month looks like. One is this is what a typical quarter looks like. One is this is a typical week. And plugged all of those in. And then we looked at the big projects she had coming up that were not necessarily going to be replicable, were cyclical, but were on her radar. And so we plugged those deadlines in. And then just in looking at that, it was very clear, oh, okay, you have this project deadline in 3 weeks. So, you need to start working on it next week to make sure that you have enough time. And you were asked to present at this conference in 2 months. Well, are you creating a presentation from scratch, something new, or are you adapting something you already have? Let's make sure we're building in enough time for you to prepare. And so it was looking at what are the knowns already on her schedule and then working backwards to fill in the gaps. And so for her, that was working through her disorganization. So it's really the same process. It's really these same steps that can be applied to a lot of different types of organizational challenges. Questions, thoughts? Does this resonate with anybody?
Alex, I wrote down a couple of notes. One of the takeaways for me was how you said that for each one of the categories of the business cards, that she needed to set up a workflow for each one. Mm-hmm. And so I would like to hear how somebody sets up a workflow, knowing that the tasks that they are going to need to complete for each one of their leads or for their contacts will be different. Can you give us an example of how to set up a workflow?
Sure. So it's actually the same process. You can adapt it to any scale. So what's the outcome you're looking to achieve? So, Lisa, for you, let's take an example. What's one sort of category of contact that you have?
Well, since we are a member organization, I would say I fall into similar categories. Somebody who would be a potential lead to be a member, someone who's shown interest. Another would be another sort of group that would be a great collaborative partner of ours, co-host something. And then, we also have vendors and partners and things, like somebody who owns a space that we would use when we would do events, or something like that, like somebody who has a winery, for example. One of the things I said I wanted to do in the fall was host an outdoor event with a big open space so everybody feels comfortable. And really the only places that are able to do that is a big giant park or a winery. So, going out and looking for contacts, who do we know that has access to a big open space that would be willing to let us use that? So yeah, I think that we all generally have similar categories.
Yeah. So then you would probably, you want to think about, okay, for potential members of the DC Fempreneur community, you probably want to send them information about, this is why the community is beneficial to you. Why, check out our blog, or check out some of our free open events. So the workflow is going to be, is there an email list that they should be on that gives that type of information? Or do you want to send them a particular email that's like, hey, I'm Lisa, I thought you might be interested in this. Is it a personal contact? Is it inviting them to a Facebook group? So what is it that you need to communicate to them, or information that you need to get from them, so that they can get the right information to hopefully be brought into your community? For for things like wineries or parks, maybe you don't need to have know anything about theirs up front. Maybe you want to have a call just to say, what's your capacity? How many people can you fit indoors? How many outdoors? How many bathrooms do you have? If you're going to have an event with a lot of women and they only have one bathroom, maybe that's not the event. What's the basic information for you that you would need from them, so that if you are a month away from planning an event, you kind of know what you need, and you could say, oh, great, I know when I had this conversation with, you know, this venue, they really fit the bill. So maybe it's setting up a conversation with them to talk about the types of event that you have, and the types of facilities and services that they offer. So maybe your workflow for that would be setting up that call, and you could have a checklist of the questions that you want to ask, maybe a database where you put that information. So when the time comes and you need to search for a venue, you can just look it up there. You've already done the hard work of figuring out what's going to work and what's not going to work. For other networking groups that are maybe good partners, you know, maybe you would have a email template that you could send out that's like, hey, you know, I see that your group focuses on these things, my group focuses on these, you know, would it be good to do a joint event? Maybe like a joint event can be your initial touch point with them. Does that make sense? Just thinking through what the outcome you want for that community, that type of contact is going to be, and what the specific steps are that would lead you to get there.
Yes, we have a couple of comments in the question. So, I mean, in the chat. So I just told everybody that they could unmute themselves and pop in. Do you have some more slides to go through, or?
There's one more, but I do want to say that, and I'll share a link in the chat, that I did record a video webinar actually for an event that Jennifer organized. It's a 30-minute video that goes through this in more detail and goes through a lot of the steps. So I'll share that because I don't want to spend time today on something you can just watch the video for. I'd much rather answer your questions. So I'll put that in the chat momentarily, and actually going to stop the screen share so that we can see each other a little bit better. Okay, yeah. Does somebody want to jump in with another question?
Hey, I will. So I was the one who I said that I'm really good at brain dumping, but then I have so many lists that my lists get overwhelming. And so Lisa made a good comment about how she has a daily planner with weekly to-do lists. Where I get a little bit lost is, like you were saying, those long-term goals. I'm really good at getting things done that I need to get done right this week or next week, but 3 months from now, or a strategy that I really want to bring to life, is a little bit harder, just because it's not on my mind. I'm always thinking about what needs to get done now.
Yeah. Well, a long-term goal is essentially a bunch of short-term goals that have to follow each other. So I would say, in that thinking about your long-term goal, think about, you know, sometimes it's a balance of working forward and working backwards. So, you know, starting with that goal, you know, what do you need to do in order to have that? You know, what are the things that, let's say you're planning, I don't know, give you an example of like a long-term goal, and we can think through this together.
Oh gosh. All right, this is like a, you know how people have like those goals that are like achievable and then they'll like beyond. I would love to own an Airbnb one day.
Okay. So what's keeping you right now from having an Airbnb? Like, what would you need to get to that point?
Financial money.
Okay, great.
And a plan. And I've done a little bit of research, but there is, you know, a management company to maintain it. And I would love to renovate it. So that's, you know, just some work there, and then research of the market. So just a few.
And so those are all very specific things. So doing research into the market to figure out what type of property or, you know, what location would be good. And then looking into what are the regulations for Airbnb in that location, because they're changing all the time and they differ place to place. So that's like a very concrete thing that you could put on your calendar, you know, today, tomorrow, anytime. Right. Then, you know, whatever location is, you would probably want to find, you know, a contractor that you know and liked if you wanted to do renovations, to talk about, you know, what are some of the considerations. You know, you want to find somebody who shares your values and you know, gets good recommendations, that they're reliable, because a non-reliable contractor is the most stressful thing ever.
Mhm,
I think we've all
mhm.
probably dealt with that.
Yeah.
So that's another thing is, figuring out who's a good person to partner with, and you get to that piece. On the financial side, what are the different options looking into? Would you want to take out a loan? Is this the kind of thing that if you set a 5-year goal to save a certain amount of money, then you'd be in a position? Just keep getting really specific, and then you'll have these little short-term pieces that lead up to it. And it can really help. There's a tool that's actually been the lifesaver since the pandemic. It's called Miro, MIRO.com. And there's a free version, and it lets you make process maps and like brain dump on Post-it notes and then move them around in different ways. So, as you're putting the long-term goal together and you keep identifying these parts, dig into each part. Okay, in terms of figuring out the financial pieces, what are the questions that I have? How do I answer each one of these questions? Who do I contact? What do I need to look up to even understand the scope of that question?
Mhm.
And once you break it down enough, you'll have an entire list of really achievable tasks. And then as you accomplish them, you'll see, oh my gosh, I'm really making progress towards this long-term goal. It's not just this abstract thing anymore.
So I think one quick takeaway for this is like having one software where I put all my brain dumps
Yeah.
related to this goal that I constantly go to instead of 20,000 Word documents.
Yes. And actually, I want to make sure we have like another time, because I want to share one more slide that goes through some of those tips. So I'll make sure we leave a few minutes at the end. All right, what's another question?
If somebody has a question, they just unmute themselves. Go ahead.
Okay, well, if there aren't, then I can go to, let me go to the next slide that I mentioned. And these are, let me just go to slideshow view. Got to make sure it's on the right screen. So these are the 5 steps. This can be really overwhelming once you've gone through the steps on the previous slide and you've identified the problem, you understand how you're experiencing the disorganization, you have the picture of where you want to go, and you have the steps to get there. It's still really overwhelming. There's still a lot to do. And sometimes that uncertainty or just the sheer number of steps, or the fact that there's still so much you need to learn to really take action can feel overwhelming. So these are my 5 tips. The first one is you do you. And while it can be really helpful to read books and blogs and talk to other people about what they've done, recognize that might not work for you. One problem I have with so many business books is it's very definitive. It's like the only way to have a successful business is to do exactly what I did. And if that's the tone of the book, I won't even read it. I'm like, nope, you're not the person for me. That's another like learn what not to do from person. So, if something feels right for you or you think it's going to work, just start doing it, and don't be afraid to make whatever adjustments, modifications are necessary to do it your own, to make it relevant for you, or to even make something up. For me, I struggled a lot the first couple of years I was in business because I didn't like any of the CRM tools out there. And I felt like something was wrong with me. The terms didn't make sense. The interface didn't make sense. And then I found there's a tool called Airtable where you can basically design your own database, and they have a whole bunch of templates and videos that walk you through things. And I realized, okay, I kind of have to make something up my own way that only includes, the 10 fields I need in this database. It doesn't have these 30 other functions that I'm never going to use. It was like, I'll just make up my own thing and tweak it as I go along. The second tip is get real. Be realistic about what's feasible. Because that sets you up for success. If I say, you know what, I want to run a marathon by the end of this month, I'm just going to be disappointed. One, it's really hot out there and I don't want to run when it's really hot. Two, right now I could probably go out and run like maybe 2 miles, but definitely not 26. You know, I don't have, not only is it the endurance, like my running shoes are really old. They're not going to be the great shoes for that. You know, it's COVID, so I can't run in a lot of routes because they're really crowded. Like you have to think about what are the obstacles or the circumstances that you're working in, and maybe you need to adjust your timeline or adjust you know, your big picture goal for what's realistic at that time. I think we've all had to adjust our expectations with COVID of, you know, how much we were going to be able to get done and, you know, what our deadlines would be. The third one is simplify and consolidate. The fewer tools that you're using, the fewer, you know, places that you're keeping track of your to-do list, or the fewer calendars you have and, you know, can have, the easier it's going to be, because you're not going to be like, where did I put this? I know it's, you know, I wrote something down, but it wasn't, you know, did I write it down on a scrap piece of paper? Did I write it down in my planner? Did I put a note on my phone? Simplifying and consolidating all of the places where your information is stored and your processes are stored and tools you're using. It's just going to be easier to remember, and that's going to save you time. The fourth one, and this is a hard one, is there's no set it and forget it. This is going to take time, and you're going to have to maintain it over time. Even if you spend, so this past weekend I was, my family has a cabin up in the Finger Lakes in New York, and the pantry was totally disorganized. And so I spent some time organizing the pantry, because for me, that is actually a fun thing to do. But I know that the next time I go up there, after my parents have been there, my mom's going to move things around, and then she's going to be like, I don't know where things are. And so we'll have to rearrange it again and clean it up. And maybe some of the ways I organize things weren't great for how she needs to use the pantry, or, you know, especially one of the big things is now I have a little niece and nephew that are at the house a lot. And when there's a 2- and 4-year-old, you have to set up the house really differently than when it's just adults. So you're sort of constantly updating. And when a process or system no longer works, it's not a sign of failure. It's a sign of growth. You've outgrown it. It served its purpose. And now you need to, your needs are different and your perspective is different. And so you're just updating it. It shouldn't be seen as a point of frustration. It's like, oh, this is exciting. I'm learning from what I did before and I'm growing. And then the last one is just do it. And that's, do not be paralyzed by the number of decisions. Just try something. Try, you know, any first step. You'll know pretty early on if it was a good decision or a bad decision. You just have to be mindful and pay attention to those signs. If, you know, Christina, if you're like, okay, I'm going to decide that I want my Airbnb in, you know, West Virginia, and you start looking and you're like, oh, actually the laws are not great there, or tourism is really down. You learn that. So don't double down and say, no, I have to make West Virginia work. Go back and say, all right, well, let me look at, you know, Shenandoah region or something. But a lot of people see that as a failure, like going back and refining and want to stick so hard to the path that they first took when it's not serving them. So just take action and be really mindful of what the signs are, if it's working or not. Then the last slide here is just my contact information. I love talking about this. I have a blog where I write a lot about organizing and strategy and you know, how teams can work better together. I am on all the social media platforms. My email address is there, so please reach out if you have questions or you know, want to talk through something. I truly love doing this.
So Alex, Sue has a question
Yeah.
about some other software options that could be useful to create simple systems. She says she likes Trello and it's great, but she's looking for other examples.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would think, I'm going to stop the share, and Sue, I'm going to ask you some questions. What so you've used Trello, you like Trello. What is Trello not giving you or not able to do that you would like to be able to do?
Mostly what I use Trello for is project tracking. Once decisions have been made on items, I pull in the photo, I pull in the purchase order, I pull in the so it allows me to portably track everything that has been ordered for that client and be sure, when we're 3 weeks before delivery, everything's at the warehouse and that kind of thing. Because I'm so visual and so not organized like a flow chart. That's why I like Trello.
Okay.
Because I can drag and drop those pictures and I don't care what the item number is for my own purposes, but if I have to follow up with the vendor, it's great that I have it right there. You know what I mean? A lot of, like you said, a lot of the databases and all of that, there's so much information that I would never touch ever. So I just shut myself off to it. Done, shut off, moving on, gonna keep doing it my crazy way. And I say that honestly because if I didn't have that little magnifying glass on my computer, I couldn't find 3/4 of what I have to find because I never learned how to do things differently. And
but that's fine. I think
what it is.
It is what it is. But then you, in finding, whenever people ask me what's a tool that I should use, they always hate my answer because it's well, let's think about what you really would use the tool for, and let's make a list of that criteria, and then you can start judging other tools. Let's say you went to the, Asana webpage or Monday webpage or something and looked at it. They would try really hard to be we can fix all your problems. This is the solution. And a lot of people are great, but they don't really know what their problem is and what the solution is. And I think technology is often designed as a solution to somebody else's problem. And until you know exactly what your problem is, you don't know if it's right to solve it. So I would think about, if you're really visual, is Trello not visual enough? Would you like something where you could have different views, maybe go from the Kanban board view to a calendar view, and look at, what are things assigned to different people by task or by person or by deadline. Think about what functionality you would want that would make it more helpful. And then you can look at tools and say, okay, I like the Trello interface, so I want something that's similar to that, but that also lets me do A, B, C, D. So I would go in looking at tools from you already know what you would need. This is the outcome you want to achieve. This is what you want your work day to be like once the solution is in place. And is this tool going to get me there?
All right, we have a new question. I actually really like this question because I think it's helpful to think about when you're working with others. She says, are there any tips for helping others to create their own systems that work with a larger one? So for example, if you're, if you're an employee working for other people, her question says, tips for helping others to create their own systems that work within a larger one.
That's Allison. Allison, can you give me an example?
Sure. So, I guess more so for the people that you're managing. I would assume that most of you guys have maybe an employee or multiple employees. And so if you're trying to create, a larger company-wide system, how are you helping those individuals come up with systems that are helping the whole company achieve results?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are some systems where if it's something that many people are doing and have to be able to communicate with each other, maybe they all need to have the same system. So maybe it needs to be one system in place and everybody buys into that. Sorry, my other phone is ringing. I'm sorry, there's the noise in the background. And if that's the case, then I think it's really helpful to come up with the system together and make sure, and maybe, you know, the manager can come up with, hey, I want to propose this, but I want you guys all to feel comfortable. Let's figure out how we can make it so everybody's comfortable with it and everybody knows what it's for. So if it's going to be a shared system, then I think the process of developing it and putting it in place should be shared. If you're just helping people come up with systems for their own individual work, start with their goal. You know, what is it that they're supposed to be producing? You know, what's their work outcome, and then what do they need to do to develop that? You know, if there's somebody who, I don't know, if it's an event planner, maybe helping them to develop a checklist of all of the steps that they need to do to plan an event, or all the questions that they need to ask of the client or of the venue, so that it's the same every time, and, you know, they feel like they have the tools to succeed. So a lot of it is saying, you know, asking the team members, what would help you do your job better? What would cut down on stress and chaos and problems for you? What are some challenges that have come up several times? And you could put something into place, whether it's just helping them come up with their own process, or doing something as a team.
Okay, thank you.
Great question, yeah.
Okay, so Christina has a question. Specifically, she's looking for examples of an external drive for big files that she could back up, but don't have a monthly cost. And she says that Dropbox has a fee and Google Drive is a bit hard to organize. So
Yeah, I am not a fan of Google Drive.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
So I have an external drive attached to my computer, which is obviously like not as portable. I'm looking for an online solution to back up my files that either it's just a one-time cost or, you know, free. Yes.
Is it just for you, or do you need multiple people to access it?
Just for me. I just need a good backup file situation.
Because Dropbox, like the personal is free, but is it larger storage than Dropbox?
Just curious. If not, it's okay.
I don't know of any that aren't a monthly subscription. But I'll think about it.
Thank you.
I wonder if with the Dropbox, if you can, rather than purchase the monthly, if you can just purchase a certain amount of storage.
Yeah, that's a good, I'll look into it. I used to have it. I just am trying to lower my softwares, that amount of softwares that I have. So.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions or thoughts? Did people get some useful nuggets to take away? Excellent. Well, if there aren't any more questions, please reach out if you think of something after this. Check out the video. There's also, oh, I should have pulled the link up. I made there's like a little workbook that you can download that walks you through this process. Actually, Lisa, I think you had it on the event.
Yeah, so the workbook, as well as the, actually, I don't think we shared the link again for, I don't think we shared the link for the pre-recorded one that you did, but we did share one for the workbook, but we can share it again too.
Sorry, I put the video link in the chat, but I'll copy it again. And then we can post, I can post the workbook one. Can we email it out to everybody? Do you have everybody's email addresses, Lisa?
Yep, I have everybody's email.
Okay,
but I think that, I'm pretty sure I downloaded it myself, the workbook.
Okay.
To look at it. But if there are any other follow-up questions, one of the things that we could do, is within the Facebook event, like if you go back into our Facebook group and you click on the event, you can post questions to Alex here, or there rather, and then everyone who attended the event can also see like the discussion.
Right, I just added the link to the workbook.
Okay, so Lisa, do you want us to drop our biz cards here in the chat? So yeah, I would just say something like, you know, my name is Lisa Shapiro, Lisa at DCFempreneur.com. And then if you want like a social media handle, like for you guys who are super graphic based or something like that, you know, that's fine. And then I can also grab the chat at the end and then copy and paste it. If people would like a copy of that, that's fine. But I think the Facebook event is really helpful for that, where people can go in and see who went and connect with each other that way. It's real easy just to click on someone's information right then and there. Okay, I think that's it. I think we can wrap up. Thank you guys all for attending. I hope you got a little bit of information to take away. Again, I think that the workflows concept is super helpful, and working backwards for your end goal, I think, is a really good takeaway nugget. And I think also another thing that stuck out to me is what works or what doesn't work for you is just as important at what does work. And I didn't, you know, when I'm writing workbooks and I'm filling in activities all the time, I always think to myself, I'm supposed to focus on what does work and do that again and again. But also, you know, that process of elimination of knowing what doesn't work helps us as well. So that was a nice little reminder.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Great to be here with you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.